Well, the rating of the Nigerian government in combating sexual and gender-based violence is not fair enough. I'll say we're not doing well as a country because Nigeria, having ratified CEDAW, which is a convention on the elimination of discrimination against women, has a due diligence obligation to investigate and prosecute and punish cases of gender-based violence, which in most cases is not happening in Nigeria. A lot of women and girls have barriers which impede their access to justice, and we can't undermine the fact that access to justice is very important in ensuring we curb impunity when it comes to violence against women and girls. As a country, you find out that most cases are underreported because people don't feel safe to report. The stigma, the attitude of the police impede women's access to justice. So as a country, I'll say Nigeria is not doing well enough when it comes to ensuring women have access to justice through also punishing and prosecuting perpetrators and fair trials to ensure that others do not commit the same crimes, because impunity reigns in the country because people think they can go away with it. People think they can bribe the system out of ensuring that they are punished for what they have committed.
Following the 16-day activity, Amnesty International stated on Tuesday that Nigeria as a country is failing to ensure victims of gender-based violence receive justice. This was revealed in Abuja as it organized interactions with youngsters on the theme of stopping violence against women and girls over the 16 days of activism. Students from Bates University, Now University, the University of Abuja, Philomath University, Bingham University, and Veritas University were present. Gender-based violence is defined as an unequal power dynamic between the male and female genders, which is influenced by cultural beliefs, gender stereotypes, societal expectations of masculinity and femininity, gender socialization, and popular acceptability. Cases of gender-based violence have continued to rise in Nigeria owing to terrorist operations, society's patriarchal mindset, and the persistent economic disadvantage of the female gender, among other factors. Every year from November 25th to December 10th, the world observes 16 days of activism. During the occasion, Amnesty International's country director Osai Ojibo advocated for the allocation of necessary resources to police, investigators, and prosecutors in order to secure justice for victims of the act. While answering journalists' queries, Ojibo explains how stigma, impunity, and cultural beliefs, among other things, have prevented so many recorded cases of violence against women and girls from receiving the appropriate justification.
Family members, people in society encourages them to keep quiet because they feel that they've brought shame to their family, there's stigma, and therefore it's also hard to get witnesses to appear in court to support the cases of the victim. The second is the police themselves, because they're the first contact that victims and survivors meet. They could be discouraged or they would not take the cases of investigating this seriously, especially when it involves a person of importance or someone who has a lot of power over the victim. So in the case of incest, maybe the father or the uncle. In the case of rape at work, perhaps it's the boss or a senior member of society. And so you find that in such situations, there could be a compromise. The other is the justice system. Our justice system still uses a lot of archaic processes. Cases take long, they are heard in public, and we know that cases of sexual and gender-based violence tend to be quite intimate. So it means that the courtroom needs to be cleared in order to provide the privacy that is needed for the victims and survivors to speak up.
I'm campaigning against violence against women and gender-based violence as exclusively focused on women, leaving males out. In response, the country's director stated,
"The issue of gender-based violence should be carried by women alone. But we have since realized that if society is going to move forward, both men and women, boys and girls, need to participate in eliminating violence against women and girls. And this involves involving men in the decisions regarding prosecution, empowering them, but also encouraging them to speak to other men and boys so that they can recognize when behaviors are actually harming women and girls. It's also important that in carrying out the advocacy, that boys and men see men visibly condemning these acts. It shouldn't be a women's affair.
She urged the government to create an enabling environment in getting access to justice and also commence advocacy in communities in order to shift some preconceptions and myths.
One is investment in the training and capacity of the police to investigate, document, and prosecute these crimes. because that's the beginning. We know all over the world sexual and gender-based violence is difficult to prosecute, but if you have the tools, you make the chances of the perpetrator escaping limited. But right now, investigations are spurred from the beginning. The other is to invest in education and training in schools, in our communities. There's still this idea that there needs to be macho men in society, which also creates stereotypes in terms of men having their way and women having to submit to them. We need to begin a reorientation. So really it's a